Hello everybody, I'm Junia. This is Uncommon Sense. Thank you for joining us today. My guest, Georgia Abbott, is director of the Alden B. Dow Center for Creativity and Enterprise at Northwood University. She earned a BA from Kalamazoo College in organizational psychology and an MBA from Northwood University Richard DeVos School of Management. So welcome, Georgia.
Well, thank you for having me.
That was a long title, to the Center for what you work for, Center of Creativity and Enterprise. What actually does it do?
Well, the center was founded actually in 1978 to honor Mr. Dow. Alden Dow was quite a creative individual, an architect, but very interested in individual creativity. So in those days, the center was called the Creativity Center and focused really for the most part on individual creativity and the fine arts and ways that we could express ourselves with our personal creativity. And we often think of art and dance and music as a way that we express individual creativity. The center, has had a long legacy of having creativity conferences in Midland, which were even international. People came from all over to go to workshops on the campus. But over the years, and I think when President Priddy came to the university, there was the thought that we'd like to bring the center closer in focus to the university. And Northwood University is a private, not-for-profit business school. It's a free, market-based business school. So how could we bring creativity closer to the university? And so we did slightly change the name. I came in 2009 to help craft and focus the center to bridge, where does creativity meet enterprise? And so that's been my fun, enjoyable task over this last 3 years is trying to bring creativity and innovation closer to where it meets new enterprise. And so I don't feel that the center has become any less creative or any less focused on the individual's creativity, our students, people in the community, but trying to bridge where we might head if we are creative enough to be innovative, create new ideas, new products, new technologies, that would bridge its way to new enterprise, which in the state of Michigan is something that we've been talking a lot about.
What were the questions you asked yourself as you took the job with this challenge?
Well, it was a challenge. I'm an entrepreneur myself, and so I was asked personally by President Priddy to come to the university to see whether there was potential to bring the center to a new place, to renew the center and refocus the center deeper. But as an entrepreneur, we liked that. It was like a sandbox to get to play in. When I first got to the center, I found a file cabinet, a small cabinet of some things that Mr. Dow had personally written back and forth between Arthur Turner and Gary Stauffer. So it was a great file to find. There were handwritten notes between them, and I think it was really Arthur Turner's file. It was the one he kept, but it was really revealing. It helped me understand their relationship better, how much I think Mr. Dow appreciated them as entrepreneurs these crazy guys who wanted to start up this institute at that time, the university, that they were a couple of very creative guys themselves. And so I learned a lot from reading the notes in that file, and I was confident that there was a way to take Mr. Dow's philosophies and his innovative and creative ideas and really bridge those and bring them to the present. He was way out there with the way he innovated and thought.
And it's been 3 years you've been there. And so what steps, big or small, or which direction? How do you do this? I mean,
Right, how did it go? Well, the center now is focused on four areas that are all interrelated and are all, I think, very much creative. One is family enterprise. So we know at Northwood we've had a long legacy of family businesses. We still have a great percentage, somewhere around 30% of our students still come from family enterprise. Not just automotive dealerships, although Northwood, of course, is known for that background of student body, but family enterprise is very entrepreneurial. Entrepreneurship is another one of the four focuses of the center. So we see a lot of creative and innovative people in family enterprise. We see legacy families with new students coming to our university whose fathers or mothers came to Northwood a decade ago or two. And so that's really an exciting part of the focus of the center. Creativity and innovation, connecting the two is another focus. And the last is new business development. So, yeah, the thought that all of those things need to be sustainable. Family enterprises and entrepreneurs constantly need to be looking at new products and services. And so partnering and wanting to be focused on new business development is sort of the fourth quadrant of our focus at the center, all of which involve incredibly creative and innovative people.
I've struggled with the word creativity, and I think everybody is creative. It just manifests differently. You can be creative in the kitchen, you can be creative in the shop. It's just a way of problem solving and connecting, what do I say, non-matching data or ideas, or reconfiguring it. But what is Northwood? What would you like to bring to that definition?
I think we agree with that. We lately, with the creativity and innovation quadrant of our focus, we've been looking a lot at thinking. Right. Thinking and problem solving. So what are some of the most relevant and curriculum, and what are some of the most relevant ways that people are thinking in creative realms? So one would be the company IDEO, which is a design thinking company, a design
out in
corporation.
California.
Yes. In Palo Alto.
Yeah, I met a principal of it.
So we've been trained, a few of us, in the design thinking methodology.
Interesting.
Which also, there's a whole design thinking place out at Stanford University where they study design thinking completely and run workshops. But we've embraced this because some people don't feel creative.
Yeah.
Right?
I actually went to a seminar this summer out there.
Really?
And they include the design school, the business school,
Right.
and I don't know, what was the other?
But yes, meshing those two
someone
together.
from IDEO spoke. Some about what they were doing, so that was really good. You've had a really interesting life: product development, music school.
Yes.
What is product development actually in a major corporation?
Well, in General Motors, it was a very exciting place to work. I spent not all of my career, but part of it in manufacturing, but got privileged to work on new product development teams. So that meant a new vehicle was going to come to market. But when you were put on a team, you started with a clay model of a vehicle. So these were the artists, the crafters of the design group at General Motors. And they were, it was a privilege and sort of top secret to get to work with them. And so I worked for the truck division. And so new trucks were crafted out of clay, and they were art brush, drawn. And from there, we would take them through the process of development, finally to the factories where we produce them. So I would be on projects like that for sometimes 3 years at a time to bring a product from a rendering.
What would you be doing actually?
Well, I worked with engineers. I'm not an engineer myself.
Right.
I have a degree in psychology.
Yes.
So team development and the team approach was very critical.
Yeah.
So like how I'm hoping we're teaching our students now, the iteration of product development, how we go from one thing that we think is just great, sometimes it isn't so great, and it has to iterate. Maybe it's too expensive. Maybe the market doesn't want it. Exactly how we crafted it the first time. So in the teams that I worked on at General Motors, we aided engineers and those of us that I was somewhat responsible for the cost of what an interior of a vehicle might be, and then saying, well, what alternatives might we come up with to make sure that the airbags crash well and that we meet federal standards, but how might we do this within a budget? How might we make it so that the cloth is aesthetically beautiful and that we feel comfortable and happy inside our vehicles? And it was a team effort. I'm not an engineer, so it takes many minds of different backgrounds to, sort of iterate and create and innovate together. So that was my background. I really enjoyed that. I miss it sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a great background.
I could understand that was a sense of satisfaction when the vehicles rolled off,
Eventually, down the assembly line, and then you were...
Documentation of all those years of really hard work.
Right.
And then you switched to Midland and starting a school of music here, which is quite successful. You are an amazing woman.
Well, thank you. It's been a privilege to bring that to Northwood and take all of those varied backgrounds. The School of Music was my entrepreneurial endeavor, and that has been important.
Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's been important in my work now.
Yes.
Well, when I moved to Midland, I'll be honest, it's a small town.
Yes.
I had lived in Chicago and Detroit. I'm from Grand Rapids. And I came to Midland and thought, oh dear, what have I gotten myself into? It's a small town. But I soon came to understand that this was a very special community. That didn't take very long. And full of creative and people, intellectual people, incredible school systems and all of this. I saw a business opportunity, and that was that children in our community needed perhaps a music school that families would embrace, that I knew that particularly in early childhood. So my school caters to children that are 2 years old through age 11. So it's very, very early stages of development for children. And there wasn't in our community something like that. Even in the Tri-City area, the Saginaw Bay City, even as far as Mount Pleasant, there just wasn't something focused on those early childhood years where we know children can learn a new language, that they're sponges, that they're really capable at those ages of learning. So I was getting my MBA though at the DeVos Graduate School at Northwood, and quit my job at quit my job at General Motors. I did quit at that time and decided I wasn't going to drive all the way to Pontiac anymore, and started my school. So the school now is almost 14 years old, and it has been very much embraced by the community because it's skillful, because families really appreciate in this region that education for their children. So it's been a great business. It's been
What do you teach a 2-year-old?
Well, you wouldn't believe what they can take in. For 2s and 3s especially, 3-year-olds can take in the musical staff, understanding treble and bass clef, note placement on lines and spaces. They can sing solfege, which is do, re, mi, like the sound of music. They learn that language immediately, as we can teach them French or Spanish. And because of the great diverse community we have in the Midland community especially, many of the children's families, South America and European families, all learn solfege. In the Middle East, solfege is taught. So that's a common musical language that's global. So again, I think in the Midland community, they embrace that because, that's what I learned when I was
And then
young.
what other things are taught?
Piano, and rhythm. Rhythm is essential. So we have many small drums and maracas and things like that for children. It's a lot of fun.
So I'd like to hear more about the entrepreneurial side of you, how you came to not take it on, I don't really mean that, how you assembled your thinking about what you had to do to see if this could fly and what you had to do to create it.
Well, I think that walk was important as it's taught at Northwood, or as we coach other entrepreneurs. You know, at Northwood we have a relationship with the Innovation Center, with the Blue Water Angels, and entrepreneurs, whether they're young or old, have sort of an archetype. They make mistakes, but they often don't call them failures or mistakes. You know, there are some really interesting ways that entrepreneurs breathe and think and make their way through their ventures or combinations of ventures over time. So I feel that I personally have walked that as well. I've really only had maybe one entrepreneurial venture, but I've definitely made some mistakes with it. Things didn't always go perfectly. But I enjoy chaos. I'm flexible. And I think all entrepreneurs would say this. We often say entrepreneurs are risk takers. And there's been a lot of theories and scholarly documentation of really whether risk taking is really the way to describe that. Dr. Sarasvathy at Carnegie Mellon is calling it more effectual. She's documented entrepreneurs' effectual approach to things, which...
Does that describe you, or does risk takers describe you?
I think this effectuation is a powerful way of looking at entrepreneurs. We do tolerate chaos.
Yes.
We are flexible. And that need to not have everything buttoned down, because you need to ebb and flow with how the market perceives, or perceives what you are offering, your ability to iterate and change as the market will take in what you have to offer, or feedback that you receive.
So what is the role of passion in starting something?
Yeah, and there's a great quote of, passion is what makes you go every day. Drive is, a discipline. But I have always been a musician. I do think connecting with your passion is critical. And I think early in the entrepreneurship curriculum at Northwood, and through early coaching of any entrepreneur, there's got to be a soulful connection with what they must believe in this. Because you can be driven and you can be task-oriented, but there are dark days in entrepreneurship, and so
non-entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I just believe
you just handle things.
You need to be passionate to really
now,
get up in the morning.
Where did you learn this? I mean, you have an amazing ability to go in many directions. Now, tell me a little bit about your family, your mom and dad. What were they like?
Well, there's a fair amount of entrepreneurship in my family, and I do think we see this in family enterprise, this legacy of watching your family members be entrepreneurs. My mother was a teacher. However, her father and my uncle own a pattern making shop in Grand Rapids, so they were very entrepreneurial. My father and his father had an accounting firm, and my father runs that still today. So we might not look at being an accountant or a tax advisor as very entrepreneurial, but it's still your own business. Right, and the pattern making business, Michigan Pattern, is still in existence. My uncle runs that now, and it's very creative, making wood patterns, working with engineers, designs, products, and of course now it's not made in wood; it's done with CAD/CAM equipment, a resin is cut, by machines. It's amazing. But I do think that I watched my family, as many family enterprise children will attest. They watched their families be entrepreneurs and get up and think, well, all right, we got to take a different direction. What are we going to do today?
So Georgia, looking back on your educational life and knowing who you are now, is there any quality or subject you wish you would have studied or been pointed to that would have helped you?
I'm musical, so I did have a way to always express my creativity.
Because you play what?
I am a pianist and a harpsichord player.
Oh, good.
I don't have a harpsichord myself, but while I was studying in college, I did. I know there are a few in the community, but
beautiful.
Yeah, so that was my creative outlet from the age of 6. So I was expressing myself creatively. I do think, though, that more coursework in creativity, workshops in creativity, seminars, places where we can learn to exercise our creativity in different ways. So musical creativity, we get to learn how to be improvisational, Don't look at the page, make it up as you go, or to write, to compose, either lyrics or at the keys. So that was my training, and I got that education. I think I would have liked to have maybe more education on how to exercise creativity through thinking, problem solving, not just brainstorming, although that's maybe a commonplace that we would have known through the 80s and 90s. Brainstorming is certainly one technique. There are many, though, now, more and more educational processes or thinking, critical and creative thinking processes that I wish that maybe I'd had more training in. I get to do that now in my work, but that's a neat realm I think everyone would enjoy more of, I think.
Yeah, I mentioned, I actually read about this Man Against Machine, this book out of MIT, which says productivity is not of the past, but the way success is in the future in this very interconnected world is one, education. You just have to have that investment of time and studies in you. Secondly, capital left over after taxes is a big advantage for a lot of reasons. But the difference between pretty good and really outstanding is very small, so that it's that creative or that unusual turn of mind, or so you may be a part of something that is more and more recognized as really important.
I'd like to read that book.
Yeah. Well, I'm not really recommending it, but I think it's always good to stay nimble. So you don't get locked into one point of view. I mean, I try that with myself, okay, how could I think of this differently? What am I missing here? Can it be said differently? What if I change this variable? What does that do? And when it's fun, and I do it because I was brought up, there was yes and no, there was right and wrong. You either got 100% or whatever on the problem or you didn't. So being wrong was really paralyzing because you don't want to be wrong, right?
Sure.
And I think it's much better now that you're learning, and it's kind of easy. Now, do you have children?
I do.
And how did you work with them in teaching creativity?
Well, they are both musical, although like many parents, owning this music school, you would think that my children were 4 and 5 at the time when I started the business, that I would have put my children into the school of music and they would have just embraced it and thrived.
Yeah.
My daughter got home, I think, when she was about 5 or 6, and she said, I'm not going to play the piano. I'm not going to do that. But they are both very musical, but they've carved their own way. They've played guitar. My daughter is a dancer. She's a great singer. So I think exposing children to music is critical. I think that music education is a great avenue. Any fine arts education for young children, I of course believe that this should be early.
Do you include dance in that?
I would, yeah, I would. I think that that's an incredibly creative expression. It's not my forte, but all of those realms, I think, are great ways to exercise your creativity. Yeah.
Did you take it personally when they said, no, Mom?
Well, I coach a lot of parents through the music school where their children go through this as well. I think Suzuki actually
Yeah.
wrote several books early on about ways that children need to choose their own instrument, be it their voice, a cello, a piano, but that they have to make those choices on their own as they get older.
Thank you, Georgia. It's so wonderful. We could continue, right? I'm
We
really to
could.
roll right here. I want to thank Georgia for sharing this time with us. She has emphasized that living with uncertainty is the characteristic of an entrepreneur. Call it chaos, call it creativity, call it entrepreneurship. This is something really in all life you have to get comfortable with that. And also the idea of picking what your passion is and working hard enough so that you can be successful at it, whether you're a child and you're going through dance or music, or you're in your kind of job. I think this creativity entrepreneur is like constant training, and fun, if you think of it, fun. I want to emphasize fun. So, you know what I always say at the end of the show, please go out and do something nice for someone you know and someone you don't know, and do it again the next day and the next day and the next day. Be it so small as just a smile or just picking something off the floor, something that will make someone's day just a little brighter, because that is your gift in the creative sense of the day. You can change it for the better. So thank you very much. See you next time.
To contact Junia, send her an email at info@juniadone.com. For more information, program schedules, and news about future guests, go to www.juniadone.com. Thanks for joining us. See you next time for Uncommon Sense with Junia Doan.